This way the people news, y'all. Alrighty, again, this video is without prejudice and without recourse, okay? I'm going to stand on the UCC 1-308, okay? I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. So anything is said or do on this video is just opinions and opinions only. It's not legal advice, so do not take it as such. Do your own research, okay? Govern yourself. Be responsible for yourself, all right? Never look straight forward. Always look around you to be able to protect yourself by any means necessary. That's what I'm doing. I'm going through the thorn bushes. And these videos is just for my protections of learning, okay? And I'm willing to share what I'm learning. And some of these videos are already new, and some of it's been reminding me of the things I looked up a long time ago during my research, because I didn't really have good computers where I can download stuff and have all this place. It's just I type in there and look stuff up and this, that, here, and there. But here we go.
Welcome back. Just as there are different types of laws, tort law, criminal law, civil law, contract law, trust law, international law, statutory laws, ex post facto law, etc., etc. There are also different types of defense. There are different types of jurisdiction. When it comes to rights, there are different types of rights. We all have rights. But do we really know what they are? When they tell you confidently, when municipal entities and employees tell you, well, you better know what your rights are, they're letting you know that there are different types of rights that you can invoke. And here are some of them. If you say you're a private man, a private citizen, then you have something called private rights. In the United States, a private right is one that a private citizen can vindicate, unlock, and enforce. Compared to public rights, a citizen must be able to show that they have, quote, sustained or is immediately in danger of sustaining some direct injury in order for you to invoke private rights. This is the qualifying factor. The injury that you have already sustained or the immediate danger of injury. Hence, an injunction to prevent it, aka equitable relief. And not that they suffer in some indefinite way in common with general people, meaning all laws are specific. Because all laws are specific, the rights that go along with those laws must be specific also. You must have evidence. And they went over that in the case law, Frottingham versus Mellon. What is a private citizen? A private citizen is someone who does not have an official or professional role in a given situation, meaning you're not a public servant. What is a public right? Public right, as compared to private rights, belong to citizens but are vested in and vindicated by political entities. Public rights cannot be vindicated by private citizens. A right must normally be a private right to be vindicated in court. Meaning, in order for you to state a claim to which relief can be granted, it must be a private right. When the laws created to hold public officials, to regulate public officials' activities, do not apply to you. There lies the loophole of codifying the slip laws to general laws to common law to session laws of your state. There lies the codification of the public laws and the statute at large on the United States level. Because the primary law that was initiated to hold them liable, which all other laws extend out of, is the Constitution. They've done their best to amend it over and over and over, starting from the 11th Amendment that speaks about sovereign immunity, all the way to the rest on the United States level. And on the state level, they constantly recreate new ones. That's why you will see some states have Constitution in the year 1818, and then another one in the 1870s. and then another one in the 1900s, and then another one in 2001, and then 2020.
Now, just so you guys know, the reason why I do this is the Founding Fathers says what is not there is left for the freedom of the people. Okay? So what they are doing when they add new constitutions to federal or state is more into bound you. Okay? They're taking away from freedom. The Founding Fathers' intent when they said majority had to do a amendment was to actually release some of the restrictions, not add restrictions, because we were supposed to get older and wiser. Our generation was supposed to get smarter, and we were supposed to get away from dependence on the government. All right, so that was the original intent of the Founding Fathers, is not for them to add to it, but as to subtract from it. Okay?
They keep trying to create loopholes than the foundational principle that's meant to hold them liable, which is the Constitution. And they are doing the same by creating other types of laws, private laws, as an extension of the common law of the state, by codifying it, as an extension of the public at large. On the United States level, by creating the United States Code. Do you see this dynamic? That is what differentiates a private right compared to a public one. They even tell you blatantly, a distinction can be made between criminal rights and a private right. Arguing that meaning with criminal rights, if you cite in 18 U.S.C. 241, 242, it's not giving you a private right of action. Arguing that restrictions against ex post facto laws, meaning those things that they've compiled together and they're calling them laws, like the video that we went over regarding the difference between the statute at large and public laws. Arguing that restrictions against ex post facto laws were not designed to protect citizens' contract rights, aka 18 U.S.C. 241, 242, 42 U.S.C. 1983. Does not protect you any right and does not afford you the private right of action. If you're still in doubt, the case law Duger versus Cullen, 1985, lets you know blatantly, word for word, that your 18 U.S.C. 241, 242 does not afford any private right of action. Why? Because of these basic principles that we've just simply went over. It tells you. Plaintiff's complaint state that his action also arises under Section 241, 242 of Title 18. Section 241, 242 relates to deprivation of civil rights. However, there is no private right of action under any of these statutes. Title 18, Section 241, 242 relate to deprivation of civil rights. Meaning this civil rights is a statute.
Okay, so the easy way of saying this, y'all, sorry. Again, it's my opinion. I'm not an attorney, okay? You can go after civil rights on that, right? But when you stand as a man and you've been harmed by one of these officers, then you must go after them as a man. You got to go after them in the private, not the public. Okay? They do these things on purpose and using these trickery of words to confuse we the people. If you notice, all these writings are usually done by what? What are they done by, y'all? They're done by attorneys. You cannot move 10 feet without some type of attorney telling you what you can and cannot do.
That does not afford private right of action. Civil.
Case in point, Sydney ordinance. All right. Judice of Prudence is a member of a corporation. So when they say that you broke some type of ordinance, they are claiming you are part of their corporation or you are a corporation. Just saying. Or the ordinance don't attend to you. And as being a private, the ordinance does not tend to you because you're not a corporation or part of that corporation at that time.
Right that people speak of is under 18 U.S.C. Part 1, Crimes, Chapter 13. Talks about civil rights. Conspiracy against right and the provision of rights. And they're letting you know that there's a distinction between criminal right, Title 18, crimes and criminal procedure, and private right, which is what you ought to be looking into if you want to hold anyone liable. This is another gray, subtle area that no one has been talking about. You want to hold people liable, you want restitution, which is an equitable relief, you want to be restored, or you want to prevent the sustenance of some direct injury by invoking equity and injunctive relief, or you have already been...
Remember, equity. That is the most important part of the Constitution, state constitution, and your due process and your private rights as a man, or even if you want to say sovereign, not a sovereign citizen, but sovereign.
damaged. The damage has already been sustained, so you seek a relief, right? But letting you know that there are restrictions against ex post facto law, aka civil rights. And you can see that in the last video with the statute of laws being converted into statutes, codes and statutes being compiled into statutes, and the fact that those codes and statutes are not enforceable. They're prima facie, just on its face, not substantive. By virtue of that, they're after the fact. Ex post facto law is a law that retroactively changes the legal consequence of action that were committed or relationship that existed. The relationship that existed is the fact that it's legally enforceable, which naturally will be the general laws, session laws of your state. In the federal level, it will be the Public Act, the statute at large.
Now remember, y'all, legal and lawful as two different entities. Okay? He's talking about legal. The private has lawful.
But the moment that it is compiled into codes and statute, it becomes an ex post facto law. It becomes after the fact. Is that codes and statute?
Codes and statutes are also what I like to call bypass laws. They bypass the Constitution. They bypass your due process. They bypass this. They bypass that. They bypass trickery words. You know, all these trickery words is a bypass of your rights as private.
Or after the original thing that you created. And all constitution in the state or federal level lets you know that Congress shall not pass any law regarding ex post facto. And on the federal level, the state and federal constitution lets you know in Article 1, Section 9 that no bill of attainder or
Now, I'm pausing that just to let it sit there for a second, right? Read that. Get it in your head. Shall be passed. Alright, well, I did the video about shall, but we had to go back into the original intent of shall, of equity. Okay, that's what the Founding Fathers was. Equity, original intent, and what the original intent as shall. So we got to be real careful how they, the government, is using shall compared to private as shall to be used. And it needs to be clear.
Post facto laws shall be passed. So, if the slip laws, the general laws, the session laws, and the statute at large that the Congress naturally passed are after the fact being converted into United States codes or the compiled statutes of the state, you have effectively changed the consequence of the action and the intent of that law and the relationship that it has to you. Hence, it's not designed to protect your rights. We know everything is contracted. So if you want to hold anyone liable, you need to invoke your private rights. And your private rights are not in USC codes. Learn them, study them, know the dynamics, and throw that thumb. When it comes to you using it to seek relief, that's not the way. Case law tells you that. The definitions in Black's law tells you that. So stop for a moment and ask yourself a question. Whenever you want to invoke a specific right, are they private rights? Are they criminal rights? Are they public rights? Are they civil rights? Whatever category they fall under, what specific type of law is carrying that body of right? What is that body of right leans on, rests on? And from there is where you'll be able to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. Best of luck. Hey, just a quick reminder. Don't forget to check out the Patreon page. There you'll find documents that have been used personally successfully and other deeper details on how to actually use these things beyond what they are, who's involved, and why.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Again, I thought that one was interesting for some of y'all that may or may not know. Okay? And I actually did learn a couple of things on this video myself, and it's the first time I heard it. So, yay. And got reminded of something I've researched